So many students aspire to achieve great grades and actually have the skill set to do so, but procrastination takes over them. They prefer short term dopamine over long term goals and end up falling short of the grades they definitely could have achieved, claiming, "Oh, there's still so much time left." It's true there's time now, however, soon enough there won't be any time left, and you'll end up regretting not starting revision early enough or not having made those resources. This is a situation that far too many students find themselves in, and the worst feeling is knowing that you could have achieved your potential and turned it into a reality. However, you didn't because you were too lazy to change certain things and certain habits. This is your wake up call. With 3 months and less till exams, you should forget about the things you can't change and get your head down now to achieve the best grades possible. I'm going to try and make this video as short as possible to save you some time, so I suggest you get some paper, make some notes, and subscribe before you start watching this video so when I release more GCSE advice you don't miss out. You may think because I achieved great grades I was revising for months and even years before my exams. However, that is not the case. It's simply a few study habits that you should change that will allow you to go from bad grades to good grades and good grades to the best grades. You need to get yourself a good timetable with a consistent routine. This doesn't mean documenting every single minute of your life and making sure you have a task to do, but just having a sense of direction, so when you actually sit down at your desk you know exactly what you're doing, and this reduces the friction between changing tasks, which is what often leads to you picking up your phone as you look for dopamine. If you haven't formed a routine, start one now, whether this be waking up early in the morning to complete flashcards or completing your homework as soon as you get home. By doing these kind of things, you have a definite sense of direction, and if you couple this with a to-do list so you know exactly what you're doing, you will save a lot of time when revising. This leads on to the next point about finding your best ways to revise. For me, this was flashcards, and so I hammered flashcards for the subjects I knew I could. This were the sciences, or RE, or PE, and it worked. However, just because that worked for me doesn't mean it also works for you, given that revising is an individual thing. Something that flashcards that worked for me might not be right for you. You should do blurting or something else that involves active recall. As long as it has active recall and spaced repetition, those are the most effective ways to revise, and you should still achieve great grades. So experiment and find what works for you. Continuing on the point of optimizing revision for yourself, also check on those external factors, such as whether you should listen to music or you shouldn't, or whether you work better in the morning or the evening, or whether you work better in longer study periods such as 2 hours, or shorter periods such as 30 minutes with frequent breaks. By optimizing revision for yourself, you'll be able to be the most productive you can be, focus the best, and end up achieving the best grades in the least amount of time. And I'm sure that's what most of you actually want to do, getting good grades quick. And so this is a step you cannot miss. Moving on, another thing that lots of students do not use enough is past papers and the resources exam boards provide for you. A past paper in itself isn't just a past paper, but you also have the paper, the mark scheme, and the examiner report. Once you complete a paper, learning the mark scheme and exactly how the examiner wants you to write the question and answer it is very useful, and so studying the mark scheme is something you should be doing more often. But also the examiner report. Very few students actually look at the examiner report, but it shows you what some students struggled with or the most common mistakes that students make. And so the next time you do a past paper, I suggest looking at the examiner report and seeing what it can offer and how it can help you. Moving on, you need to target your weaknesses. So many students love staying in that comfort zone where they aren't targeting their weaknesses but only revising what they're good at. This leaves them with wide gaps of knowledge, which means in the test they're consistently losing marks on the same topics that they don't like revising, or the same subjects. For me, this was English language, but instead of avoiding this, I started targeting it, consistently working on it, using resources online, but also my teachers helped consistently and getting their advice and improving, and I was able to get a grade 9 and clear the boundary by a lot of marks. This leads on to the next point about using your teachers effectively. Now, it sounds bad to say you should be using your teachers, but that's their job. You should just be going to them, asking them for as much advice as possible. Given that they've studied these exam boards for years, they know the advice, you just have to ask for it. If you go and ask them to mark your essay, they most likely will, and by doing this, you can get advice regularly. And you should do this early because it will get to a point that all students have clocked onto this idea, and then they're just going to be bombarded and they won't give you the quality responses and the advice that you need. So try implement this point ASAP and you'll see your grades improve by a lot. Another thing you need to do is seek active breaks. You need to seek breaks where you're actively doing something and not simply chasing dopamine through short form content like TikTok and Instagram Reels. This alters your brain chemistry, and returning back to studying is very difficult. I suggest things like playing an instrument or other hobbies that you like, that's not just simply using your phone. This will mean that when you try to come back to revising, you'll actually be able to get back into your work and back into that focus state more easily, rather than having your dopamine receptors fried because you decided to go on TikTok for ages before starting revising again. As I said, I was trying to make this video as short as possible. So now that you've watched this full thing, make sure you implement these techniques, subscribe, leave a comment if you need any extra tips, and good luck with your revision.